Hi, welcome back to another episode of John the PM, where we believe that managing projects is not just a job, but a way of life. So here's a quote I like to read to you. Projects fail more often from bad teamwork than from bad planning. So, in this episode, I'm going to talk a little bit about the team building, just some short thoughts on it, just why it's so important, why you should always just make it a part of your, project work, just as a matter of fact. And then I'd like to also find out what ideas that you also have. You can jot some of those ideas down in the comments below, on those areas. But let's start on team building. Most of us, or if you've been in my class, you know that we definitely go through Tuckman's team stages of growth and development. They on those areas. We know them as forming, storming, norming, performing, and then the fifth stage is, of course, going to be adjournment. Classic exercise, most pop culture would say during the forming stage, we are being polite. Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. Please, this way. Then the storm kind of comes in. There's a little bit of friction that occurs. Hopefully, you break out of that and you get into the normalizing until you're high performing. And then just when everything is going well, guess what? The team has to break up because the project is over. And sometimes we'll call that adjournment. In another episode, I'll go into a little bit more detail about Tuckman stages. But for this discussion, that will suffice on those areas. Topic of the day is team building. Question that I usually ask all of my classes is: When should you do? Should excuse me? When or should you always do team building? Normally within a class, there'll be some hesitation, some pausing, and things of that nature. And I'll tell them it's a kind of a setup question. Why? Because in my mind, you should always do team building. Always. Sometimes people will say, "But John, we all know each other." Well, what maybe in a more appropriate question, as opposed to the way I initially asked it, is how in depth should the team building be? Now, and quite honestly, if it's a short project, very small, off the cuff or something of that nature, and everybody's kind of worked together, then it could just be as simple as going round robin and saying, "Hi, my name is John, and I'm here to do the numbers," or something of that nature, on that side. Now, if it's a project that's going to last and it's going to last for a couple of years or something of that nature, then you may need to do a more in depth, maybe do an off-site and really do some evaluations, some team building exercises so that you can gel together, on that side. Regardless, I'm a firm believer that one should always do team building on that side. One of my favorite exercises, just that I usually just have readily available, is the Who Me Ball. And essentially, it's a soccer ball that has questions that are written on it. And we just kind of toss it around. And wherever your thumb lands, just ask those questions. So, what was your favorite color? Things of that nature. Sometimes, if I'm dealing with teams and it's going to be a little bit longer, might do a Myers Briggs, the short version or the long version. Why? Because it's just good to be able to discuss what it is that how you interact with individuals and things of that nature. A little bit more about your personalities. Another one of my favorites might be either the disc, and most of us are, somewhat familiar with that, on those pieces. And there's other tools that are out there. Oh, almost forgot one of my favorite ones is the TKI, Thomas Kilmann instrument. How do you handle conflict? That's always a good one, especially if you know that you're going to be working in a project where there's going to be a lot of conflict that's involved in it. Knowing how the other side works conflict as well as you, and what your dominant role is. Not that any particular one is better than the other. It's really the application thereof and how you can either modify it or have a better understanding, on those pieces, on those areas. One of the things I do tend to try to stay away from as far as team building exercise is going out to eat. Well, it's not because I don't like eating. I actually like eating. The problem is sometimes unless you really orchestrate it, is that when large groups go out to eat as their team building exercise, they will, sit down at a table, and more than likely you sit next to somebody that you know in the first place. Well, that's not really getting to know everybody. And furthermore, you've gone through the appetizers, the main course, and desserts, talking to people that you already know. Now, one group that I have, do some work with, one of the things that they actually do because they insist on having the dinner is that they'll have small tables. The tables I have 4 to 5 people on it, no more, no less, about 4 to 5, and they are not allowed to sit with somebody that they actually know. Then what they also do is that they give each table some discussion things that they can talk about, on those areas, like what is your favorite sport, things of that nature. This helps them to get to know each other. It is an icebreaker, on those pieces. Other things I've saw that goes very, very well is playing bingo. In other words, you're playing out the bingo card and they have to circulate around on those areas. If you haven't noticed what some of the common themes are, one is circulate. In other words, to find somebody that you don't know and get to learn a little bit more about them. 2, talk about topics that are not necessarily work related. They should be safe topics, appropriate and things of that nature. But before we actually get to work, let's actually get to know each other. Just to kind of bring that a little bit more solidified into some points. One of my former employers, managers, senior managers, the general manager, really wonderful individual on that side, but let's call him Bob. He knew that Ron and Maureen were going to have to do a major project in the summertime. Now, this was about Christmas time, or actually right before Christmas, when they discovered that these 2 individuals have to do a major project together. They were both in 2 unrelated areas of the business and really had no professional need to necessarily talk with each other on a routine basis. So therefore, they just didn't know each other on that side. Bob, in his infinite wisdom, what he did was he assigned them to plan out the traditional holiday party that was coming up. Why? It was a safe event. It was going to happen anyway, on those areas, but it allowed them to, in order to actually meet and kind of talk with each other, on something other than the actual project that they were getting ready to embark upon, and to get to know each other. Now, fast forward about 5 to 6 months later, when the project came up, those 2 again kind of met, and they were able to do some great work together on that side. Well, great. Just wanted to give some ideas on why team building is so important. What are some tool techniques that you can use? If you have any that are of your favorite, please share them in the comments button below. If you enjoyed this session, please do hit the like button. We would greatly appreciate it. It helps us to be a service back to you. Again, we believe that managing projects is not just a job, but a way of life. And sincerely hope that your day goes well and that all your projects are outstanding.